The only voice you've got is the voice of regret. And that
Yeah.
voice is going to be so painful to listen to.
You guys are really, really, really lucky because in a second, you're going to get to meet Chris Wilson. Chris is a speaking and presenting coach and he exudes positivity more than I've ever seen before. And he's a real advocate for the fact you only get one life, so make it count. Sit back, relax and enjoy today's episode.
Right, come on. I want to get to know Chris a bit more. Right, go on then, Emily.
Chris, thank you so much for joining us here on the Digital Circus Live today. And as with every single episode, we start with one very, very important question. And that is, what are you trying to achieve right now?
The ability for people to use their voice to spread their message, to ripple a positive thing around the world.
Right.
And actually, we get that. You are very positive, and we've chatted a few times now, haven't we? And that really does come across, that positivity. Right, so our first question always is
That was our first question.
No, yeah, sorry. Our first question after the first question always is that like truly, totally align with like your personal goals? Like if you were on Millionaire's Island with, you know, multi-millions in the bank, I'm not saying you don't have that, but would you still be doing this? Is this align perfectly with your personal goals?
Absolutely. I always say to my kids, your attitude is as infectious. Is yours worth catching? It's a little bit cliche, but really, why would you ever bring your negative energy to somebody else's world? And therefore, how you bring your energy to everything will also impact on that. And secondly, I think we have such a short finite of time to be able to be on this planet. And however you can leave your impression in a positive way to another human, even if it's only just one, then that hopefully would then manifest itself to more people in the future because you've touched lives, hearts, minds with whatever ideologies you have that might be worth sharing to somebody else. So yes, if I was on a desert island talking to my Mr. Wilson football, I'd tell him the same thing.
Yeah. Come on, Mr. Wilson, we got this. You know,
I really want everyone to have a Mr. Wilson football.
I've quick side story because it's semi-relevant to. We were at the Funpreneur's Big Day Out yesterday, and we were discussing this whilst in a queue. There is a very, very top trail runner called Courtney DeWalter, I think her name is, and last year she was the first person to win 3 100-mile races, 3 of the biggest 100-mile races. No one had done all 3 in 1 year before, and what's interesting about Courtney is it's her mindset. She's like, you know, this is a privilege. I can't believe I get to do this. You know, even when she's training, and that I can't believe I get to do this was relevant yesterday at the Funpreneur's Big Day Out because we were talking about this as we were on a roller coaster, and 2 of the Funpreneurs behind us shouted, Alan, Alan. I was like, what? They were like, we get to do this. And that literal, not that we were negative, we were at a theme park having fun, but you know, that shift in that positivity does make such a huge difference. So then that leads me on to my next question, because I'm now warming up after a bit of a flat off camera, off record, has this always been there? Have you always, you know, were you 6-year-old Chris going, come on guys, we can do this, you know, or does it come from somewhere else?
I think servitude has always been in me. And I remember having a chat to my dad about career options. I wasn't the sort of sharpest tack in the box at school, but I did okay. But I was motivated by cadets or the opposite sex or just general sports stuff. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. And then he said, well, what do you not want to do? What are the things that really disserve you? And that helped me understand that I really enjoy serving people. And at the time, it was hospitality, which then took me into a hotel route. And I had this vision of, I don't know, births, deaths, marriages, weddings, of moments of truth where you never get to replicate them or repeat them. And at that point of service delivery, it's the team, the hotel, the environment that is responsible for making that moment of magic. So yes, it has been in me. And I think over time, I've become more focused on what's my own personal mission to try to bring that to other people in as good a way as possible, whether it be through podcasting or YouTubing or just in a face-to-face environment.
Yeah. So you had your career in hospitality. I mean, we've spoken to a few people who have been through that route. So what did you learn from being in hospitality?
While you're working, other people are playing, and sometimes it's not the best place to be, particularly when they get a little bit fueled on intoxicating substances.
Yeah.
And I got to a general manager's position. You then have to become very secretive or respectful about your customers who are using your establishment for some things that perhaps other people wouldn't like to know.
He's so
that
politically
is so
correct
diplomatic an answer. These douchebags were getting off their faces, and I had to be quiet about it. Yeah.
In toilet cubicles sometimes.
Yeah, I
Oh
know.
no! Did you know once Alan and I went to a wedding at a hotel, and Alan got lost in a toilet cubicle for over an hour?
Can I just point out, nothing to do with illegal substances. I just had a few beers, and I got lost in a toilet cubicle. I couldn't find the door out. Just.
I mean,
not that, I don't know
one
if that
door
makes
in,
it
one
better.
door
You
out.
got
mate.
lost in the cubicle and you couldn't find the door out.
That's a true
Off your
story.
face, Mr. Braithwaite.
It was in a period of my time where I would have been one of the guests in your hotel who you would have had to have kept quiet about. I did like a drink, and I was like a kid in a sweet shop, where, especially at a wedding when there was table wine. And I was like, what? Sorry, no one else is drinking this red wine on this table. You know, I'm driving, I've got a child, I was like, don't worry, leave it with me, I've got your back. And unfortunately, the stories do come. Not everyone was happy with me all the time, and I have to carry this. This is quite serious.
This is Chris's episode, not you.
But anyway, yes is the answer, Chris. I got hammered, couldn't find myself way out of a toilet cubicle.
But it is a really portable career as well. The art of hotel innkeeping is universally ubiquitous across the world. Whether you're in Bali or Bombay, you know, Mumbai, you have to do the same thing for the same people, and therefore, if you want to take it around the world, you can be a hotelier and take that. But equally, I think if you then have kids and family, it's a very difficult juggling match to be able to be in on Christmas Day or Easter or bank holidays and then juggle between family and work.
Yeah, it is. It is. So how long did that last then before you were like, because hospitality is quite similar to retail, isn't it? It's like, if you're not quite sure what to do, but you kind of know what you don't want, hospitality and retail will help fill that gap. And for a lot of people, because I don't think we're too dissimilar from what you're saying and what we've chatted about.
Apart from that, Chris didn't get lost in a cubicle.
Chris didn't get lost in a cubicle.
We don't know that for sure. We haven't got down that rabbit hole yet.
Right, we'll ask that. Right, Chris, let's stuff this life learning malarkey. Have you ever what's your worst drunk story that you're happy to share? Let's start there.
It would have to be my stag, I think. My father was with me on my stag, and I thought we were all doing, I think they were called Thunderbirds or something, and I thought we were all doing that. And then it turned out they were doing blackberry shots. And we were on the Tuxedo Royale in Newcastle, which is a boat on a river, and it has a revolving dance floor. So you can imagine a little bit tipsy. Trying to get on the dance floor was the hardest thing, first of all, because the objective was go and chat to that girl. I've apologies for any Geordies now. Just go and talk to that. And she's on the other side of the dance floor, but I had to navigate the circular revolving floor to get to the other side. And yeah, it didn't start or end well. And I never got to the mission, which was the other side of the dance floor.
Oh no! I can imagine with slightly drunk legs taking that first step onto a rotating floor and literally just going flying.
I can't imagine the risk assessment from the establishment's point of view to have a revolving with drunken
Yeah,
people.
but you forget this, Emily. We're all from a time where you didn't need a risk assessment for a revolving dance floor nowadays.
And this was after we'd had the stag in the daytime. I think the night before I was quite drunk, and I remember a man walking his dog, and regrettably I leant out the window and over Yorkshire Terrier or whatever the dog was, and we drove off at a rate of knots. And then we paintballed, and my dad again decided that it would be really good to empty his whole cassette of paintballs on his son from neck to ankle. And I had purple welts all the way down here. And of course, stag weekend, dance floor, purple welts look like love bites or hickeys.
Yeah.
Were you in trouble?
Sorry, so hold on. How close to your big day was your stag do, first of all, with all this bruising and
Not
damage?
close enough, thank goodness.
Right, okay, that's fine. And do we need to bring up parental figures if your dad's the one shooting you with an entire cassette, or should we just gloss over parental figures for the moment?
Well, bless him, he's no longer with us, so he can't
sorry to hear
actually
that.
defend himself whether or not his ulterior motives were good or bad.
Yeah.
So there was no years of therapy afterwards because my dad hated me with a paintball.
I
I did get him back, to be fair, so it's not without retribution.
Oh no, I do have this thing that sometimes I like. As a parent, we have 3 young children, and our middle child Ben, a little bit more serious at times. And when he was a bit younger, he said, "Daddy, can you pass me a drink, please?" So I had this bottle of water, and his bottle of water, picked it up, and I launched it at him across the room for him to catch. As it left my hand, I went, "He's 3 years old. He can't catch bottles yet." And it went flying, smashed him in the face, and went. And it hurt him, and he didn't cry. But he went, "Daddy, why did you do that?" And I'm like, oh my God, 20 years time, that is a counselling session right there. My daddy threw a bottle of water at me for no reason. So yeah, I do think about that at times. These the future of these things we do as parents, or your dad did.
Right. Okay. Should we get back on track, ladies and
I don't
gentlemen?
know. I quite like sharing stories like that. Where were we?
From hospitality to where we are now.
Yeah. What was? I think for a lot of people, you either go into hospitality and you stay there, or retail, which is cool because I go loads of career people. But then there'd be others who it's kind of a learning environment or a stepping stone whilst they're still trying to work out where, what, how, etc. And it feels like it was a stepping stone for you. So what was the tipping point? What made you go, okay, let's leave hospitality, on to the next thing?
Nothing specific. I think it's been a series of bridges that I've crossed. But all the way through that, I really enjoy the connectivity to a human being. And now I find myself much more inquisitive about where people might get stuck and how I might be able to be their guide to point of success for them in the future. So I still think that I've got servitude in me at its core, but now it's serving them for something that's a lot more long living for them, in that if we can get them to overcome anxiety, fear of speaking, connecting with a customer, closing a sale, then for me, that gives them a skill set that's going to be with them much longer than it could be a night at the opera, or it could be a meal out over dinner.
Was it an easy choice with this as a business decision to transition into what you're doing today?
No, I went from hoteling to then running a conference and events company, which was successful for a while, but we caught a big cold with a big corporate, which ended quite badly for me, in that we actually voluntarily wound that company up, which was a massive lesson of failure, but also a massive lesson of doing the right things from there on in. Then went into a slightly sort of different telemarketing route, where I really understood the benefit of coaching people, because you can make a really good cold call or you can make a really bad cold call. And it was about enabling people to do that. Then my coaching became very apparent to me that I really enjoyed that. So I went very deep on my coaching qualifications, which is where I find myself now. So it's been a series of different bridges to this point, but all the way through, it's been a period of just understanding and saying, well, yes, why not? What's the worst that could happen?
That's a really, really big thing, actually. And this is, again, something from yesterday's Funpreneur Day. We at the end of the day, we also do the whole post-it activity to put what your lessons have been from today, what you're taking back into
in a
business.
non-learning day. We did
in
have
a
a
non-learning day. There was
bit.
a lot of learning, actually, and some of it was just, again, it's the saying yes more and just doing those things that scare you. And it's very easy to say no to things, but actually, that they are the things that enrich us a bit more and give us that clarity of and thought, and so many things come out of it. I think exactly what you're saying there, even from the point of view wrapping up a company, and you use the word failure, then it's not really a failure. Yes, that project comes to a close, but actually the learnings that you take from that as a closure activity gives you so much more in terms of your breadth of skill, and to transfer that to other businesses as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gone. Sorry,
Oh no, I was going to say I'm coming back to the hospitality thing because I think there's
you're
this.
stuck on the hospitality thing, Alan.
No, I'm not stuck on it. I just like to explore it a bit more. Thank you, Emily. I think there's this element of it mirroring the phases of your life, right? So I think when you're younger and you're a bit more in that kind of having fun, partying, whichever, that kind of phase of your life, then the hospitality part and the retail part to a certain extent, it fits that. It mirrors that. You are, you've talked about serving being kind of one of your servitude, one of the things you do. And so therefore, actually, at that stage, having fun is a priority. So if I want to serve people, I can help them having fun, right? That's kind of hits. But then as life evolves and you realize, God forbid that fun isn't the be all and end all, which of course fun is the be all and end all, but at some point, unfortunately, the biggest con in the world, which is adulting, kicks in. And you realize, actually, I can serve people by helping them have a better adult life, therefore that's by helping them achieve more success, more whatever it may be. And I do think there's that element of mirroring. Would you say that feels right? That's a really bizarre question. Would you say that? You don't get the point. I've offloaded. What's your thoughts on it, Chris?
Well, I think in terms of where we are currently as a generation, or even this moment in time in humanity, there's an awful lot of things that are troubling us, and the word mental health or anxiety or stress is ever present. And the ability just to pause and think about, does this really matter? Is this really important in the big scheme of things? And how can I actually be more grateful for just the fact that this morning I could wake up, I could hear a bang on the street and it's an exhaust backfire, not a missile, something landing of that nature. And sometimes we get so caught up in the visuality of the latest short or the latest view or the latest number of impressions that sometimes we're chasing the wrong things. And for me, I take an awful lot of time to just really center myself. And the key question to me is always seek first to understand before we can be understood. And I see people judge things so quickly and assume that they know. I was just in Tesco's the other week and there was a lady, and I was across the other side of the car park, and she was probably, I don't know, 75. And she was literally wrapped hold of the Pelican Crossing pole, and she was literally holding on to it for dear life. And I watched from all the way across the car park, and everybody walked past her. And I just walked up and I just said, "Are you okay?" And she took my hand and she said, "I just want to get across the crossing and I can't see what the first step is to take because my eyesight have gone." And I just thought, I'm not trying to big myself up here, but we get so constantly distracted about what's important to us and what's important to try to do. And yet we miss that opportunity of this frail little old lady just trying to cross the street.
Yeah, no.
That's giving me goosebumps a little bit because
I'm sitting here. Sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to. I can't think of the word. But I'm thinking that if this was your stag do, you'd have been vomiting out the window all over her. But no, I am on. I'm fully on board with it. You are right.
I'm very much like you in that, Chris. I would be the person to stop, and I can never understand how or why people don't do that. And is it just because? Is it our makeup? Is it because we are infinitely different to other people, and the fact that we have that kind of that caring or looking outwards kind of viewpoint to how we are, or is it that we're just all so bloody busy in our lives and so consumed in ourselves that we haven't got that ability to help others? And it upsets me sometimes to think that poor lady must have stood there for such a long time, and people just have their blinkers on and just focusing on what they're doing.
I don't know. Danger of being all victim elderish, I don't believe it. And we spend so much time looking at this and being triggered by the latest short or the latest piece of news. And we are still primeval beings, really. And we're triggered by fear and flight. And we're fed with so much that is drawing us into, we must check because something evil or something is chasing us or something's going to happen to us. And again, sometimes you'll be in a dinner and watching the environment, and my partner and I are always very committed to not taking our phones out of the car or leaving them in our pocket so that we're very much in the environment of the conversation. And we'll look around and you would just see families just literally head down scrolling, and you're just thinking, what happened to the last 15 years where the iPhone has suddenly come along, or Android device? And I know you and we're all very committed to digital and the environment of spreading messages through digital, but there has to be a time and a place for it. And I don't
really
Yeah,
has.
absolutely.
We had this, so I think I've said this in a previous episode anyway, but I was driving our eldest child to her transition day to Deer Park, her secondary school. And I was driving, the timings were different to her primary school. So I was there just at the time of all these secondary school kids who were coming down the road. And not one single child did not have their head in their phone, including the kids who are on bikes cycling down the road. I was like, how bloody dangerous is this? Oh my God. And I just kind of thought, we have created this. We as adults have created this. We have given them the implements there to go and, to have this, off you go, put your head in this technology. And yes, we are a technical company. And yes, we do believe in digital, and we love it. We really do love it. But we're also a very outdoorsy family. And Alan with his running, and we're in Scouts, and we're outdoors in
I just want it noted that Emily brought No, I brought up Courtney de Water, didn't I?
ages ago,
Damn,
darling,
yeah,
ages ago.
carry
You
on.
brought up running first. But it's so important. So we have those boundaries. Yeah, we have complete zero tech at the table. We have dinner around the table together, and we sit there, and no one's allowed to look at their tech. We have timings that after dinner, no one's on their tech. And I think you have to lead from the front. And as adults, we have that capability to shape our children. And I think exactly what you say there. You see whole families, not just the kids, but they're all there. Mum, dad, kids in hand. Like, this is not quality time. You said something earlier. Sorry, Anna. You said something earlier about we're not here for a long time, right? We're here for just a little kind of drop in the ocean of time there. And we've had we've lost some dear friends recently who have all been early 40s. We don't really know how long we're going to be here for. And I just think you have to make the most of that. And if you are spending all of that consumed by tech, then that's a really sad place to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry,
Sorry, Alan. There was a video I remember watched once with David Goggins, and he talks about the moment that you meet your maker, and it's the time that you, whether or not you have faith or not, that you're transitioning from this life to the new life, and then you're sat down at the pearly gates, and you're played a video of all the opportunities in life that were presented to you that you then said can't, shouldn't, won't. And then they play out the future that you could have had you said yes. And I'm imagining that there's these videos playing of the parents in the playground pushing the child on the swing whilst looking at their phone, or driving the car, being distracted and smashing into the central reservation because they've just seen the latest tweet. And you played all these moments back when it's too late. And the only voice you've got is the voice of regret. And that voice is going to be so painful to listen to.
Yeah.
So here's a question then. What is the message to the youth of today? This is a big one, right? So I quite like the fact that I'm of an age where I remember pre-technology, for want of a better word, pre-online world, pre-social media. And I also quite like the fact that I'm of an age where, I had fun, I partied hard and things like that. But now it's very much like, because we're all connected and we have more learning opportunities and there is so much to learn, and it's not just what's Encyclopedia Britannica, which is what we got told when we were 10 years old. And actually we want to impart some of those learnings, some of that knowledge, some of those understandings on the youth of today, right? So factoring in, especially as parents, right? So factoring in what we went through, the partying hard, what we're learning, what we're trying to share, balance, iPhones, technology. Do you have a message for the youth? What would you say, Chris? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, if you sat 100 of them down in a room and said, are you all users of social media? They'll all probably raise their hand. And then if you said to them, how many of you posted today for positive purpose? Or have they positively posted today in any way, shape or form? I wonder how many of the 100 would then put their hands up. And then the question would be, so are you a user or are you being used by social media? for somebody else's purpose, and just try to get them to think about the way that they are interacting with something, and is it using them or are they using it?
No, I think that's it. I think that's spot on, isn't it? It's about that understanding, really. Yeah.
So, Chris, I mean, you exude positivity, and you've been
It's quite nice, isn't it?
It's
very
lovely.
enjoyable. Yeah.
Do you ever find it a battle to be positive?
No.
Yeah.
Only because I'll say that in two ways. 7 years ago, I, from this house, planned a journey that would have been my last journey on earth, literally. I opened the door and knew the 816 bus was going to be coming from a village along a very straight road. And it was supposed to be a slip on ice that would have looked like a slip on ice, but it was a premeditated decision for me to end everything because I was in such a bad place. And when you have the depth of hurt from that moment in time that I thankfully didn't take,
Good.
every second thereafter for me is a bonus. And I would love to be able to say to people, no matter how hard your day is, no matter how tough the situation is, the fact that you can live another second and hopefully enable somebody else to have a better life is so precious. That's why positivity for me is just a message worth spreading, because I was so close to making a decision that would have caused unrelenting hurt and trauma for people that matter to me.
I'm just taking that in for a second there, Chris. And thank you very much for not taking that trip, because we are all very lucky to have you in our world right now, and you are doing incredible things in your business and for your family and for all of your friends and anyone who knows you. But
I got one.
go on.
So, but I'm like, I just want to know then what goes from, you know, not making that decision, taking that decision, sorry, and, you know, starting this route to then wanting to help others, wanting to kind of make a business from it and everything else. Because it would have been quite simple to go, you know, I've not done that. Okay, you know, I carry on in hospitality or whatever career you chose. But then I always think it takes another step to then go, no, I'm going to outwardly, overtly, I want to influence and help as many people as I can, especially with what you do on YouTube and everything else. That's the mission. So what's that step for you then?
It was just curiosity as to what led me to such depth of
Yeah.
self-esteem that was so persecuting to me individually. And it was a series of circles that continued to sort of spiral together, and then it manifested in a lack of sleep, which manifested itself in bad food choices, which manifested itself in terms of a low feeling of energy, and the whole thing just became like a treadmill that just sped up and up and up. And the voice that then is in your head to say, this hurts, this is so horrible, another day of pain, it felt easier to turn off the voice. And I, having gone into that pit of darkness and doom and shame, I would like to say to people that I was so close, but had I taken that decision, now knowing what it means to me and other people, I've tried to learn more about what made me get into that position of self-esteem, persecution, and guilt. And now what have I done to try to center myself so that I still have moments where I start to get slippery, but I can correct it really quickly now by just putting some self-positive techniques in.
What was the very first step you took after making the decision to not go down that route? What was the first thing that you did or said to, or what action did you take? What was the first thing?
I don't want to get too emotional, but I rang my
it's
dad.
okay. Good.
No.
I rang my dad. I mean, I, at the time, I sat on the grass verge and literally, I don't know how long I cried for, but I cried for quite a while. And then I came home and rang my dad and told him literally, this is what I nearly did. And we just kind of talked about it. And from there, just as I say to somebody, I just want you to take the first step today. Just whatever it is, just take the first step. And sometimes people look at a homeless person on the street and say, oh, what an absolute waste of life. And I say to them, they may be homeless today, but yesterday they were on top of the Clifton suspension bridge thinking they might jump off. Today, the fact they're homeless, sleeping in a doorway, is a gigantic shift from where they were yesterday.
Yeah.
Applaud them for the fact that they've gone from there to now. And you don't know who that person is and what's put them at that point. How dare you judge somebody else just because that's the way you see it in your eyes?
Yeah.
I haven't really answered the question there, but it was
No, you absolutely have. You have.
There is no wrong or right answer to it. So
to make it slightly lighter, did your dad get a paintball gun and go, no, son, no?
Do you know how hard it was to not say that? And you're very, very serious. Thank you for sharing with us. That the douchebag in me sitting here going, I wonder if his dad then shot him again with a paintball gun. So
I wasn't expecting this conversation to go quite into this, but it's part of me. Yeah, it's made me who I am.
It's part of that rich tapestry, isn't it? And this is what we've always found with some of these episodes that we've recorded. And we're so fortunate to have this time with you guys all individually, is that it's never just face value. There's always something behind, and there's those layers that are what make us what we are today. You know, we've all had hardships, we've all had opportunities lost, we've all had so many things, we've all had lost businesses. There are those things that you have to take and reframe. And that was a word we used yesterday a few times. Someone said it's amazing how you reframe things, and it's actually just been something, because we've had our own challenges. We won't go into that today, but you have to take the learning from that sometimes to be able to make that positive shift into making your life as excuse my language. Great.
No, well, you can't swear because I've got to bleep that. Just don't swear.
Bleep it out later. It was worth it.
You don't do the editing, right?
You have to make it the best it can be, and that's certainly again something I've taken from losing my friend just in March. Actually, that you just don't know what that end point is, and just like you've said at the very beginning, being able to have that ripple effect, even if you impact just one person, how that will transcend into something so much deeper later on down the line that you will never know, but hopefully will make your mark on this world. And that's really powerful.
For me, it's not even, it is that, but in a slightly different way. It's like, as business owners, and we're all business owners on this podcast, we stand up in meetings and we deliver our elevator pitch and we talk about this and our products and services. And I just think the vast majority are solopreneurs and intend to stay solopreneurs. So the person behind that elevator pitch is always way more interesting. I'm going to attach way more to. So let's not beat around. Why are we doing elevator pitches? We should be sharing stories from our life with just a little label that says what our business does. So, something like that. And for me, that's what this podcast is all about. It's why didn't we call it the person behind the elevator pitch?
Tell me what the best thing about your job is today. Like what you do an amazing job, especially with your coaching and I suppose with your podcast and your everything you're doing. What is like the best thing that you love doing day in, day out with your business?
Well, I think TEDx's strapline sums it up for me, which is ideas worth sharing.
Yeah.
And when you find somebody, I've just been working recently with a gentleman who had a very, very traumatic life, and his brother unfortunately lost his life as a result of the abuse that they both suffered. And his message is riding through the storm, and it's allowing somebody to vent their own personal story, but then just like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, to talk about how we go through the depths of despair and then come out the other side with learnings that then could then be applied to other people. And the thing that I really enjoy is trying to get people to be authentic with their message, be vulnerable and brave about how that personally feels. But most importantly, what's the lesson and what's the call to action to others that they can take from that adversity? Because we all are going to find bumps and dips in the road.
Yeah.
But if you can find somebody that's going to hold your hand and guide you through it or show you the path because of the way they've got through it, that is priceless. And the ability to sit down with somebody and to allow them to unpack the shock and awe, deliver it with slightly less punch, but then allow people to lift and rise from that adversity. It's just such a beautiful thing to allow people to share. And then you see them almost blossom because A, they've got it out, and B, they understand that even if they connect with one person, that one person has risen as a result of the adversity and challenges they've already managed to navigate.
Chris, you're just such a beautiful soul. You're such a beautiful soul. You really, really are. I feel really privileged today to listen to this. Don't you?
I'm laughing at
I do.
No, I do,
you
Chris.
really-
I'm not laughing at you. I'm
Alan's
laughing
going to
at
bring it back to paintball and
No, I will.
I was
My
gonna
head
say,
just
because
sits in a
to be quite
different
honest
place.
with you, Chris, before, I mean, you are a lovely member of the Digital Circus, but you've mainly spoken to Alan. I don't think we've ever had the opportunity to have a one-to-one previous to this, and I just feel so much. I love everything that you stand for and everywhere you've been. And I just
Sorry, can I just read that, Chris? I am not undermining a single thing you've said. I'm fully on board. Thank you for sharing that with us, especially the serious stuff. However, as Emily's husband, I'm also very aware of Emily, and I'm just laughing at Emily because it's amusing me, not whatever.
right. Anyway,
Let's
you and me have a conversation, Emily. We'll just let Alan talk about what he runs and Yeah.
Well, I'm very much in it is what it is person, and it's almost it's not even a choice. It is me. So when Emily's talking about serious stuff in our life, I'm sitting there going, what serious stuff? It just is what it is. But actually, if you write the list of things that have happened, they are quite serious, and they are things that can cause people stress and everything else. But I still sit here and go, just is what it is, Emily. What are you banging on about? So we sometimes get caught up in this middle part where I don't know why. I just go, oh, these things happen. You just carry on with your life.
After the recording,
No,
Alan.
we're not going to unpack it. Whatever. You
Chris,
tried to
question
unpack it on my episode.
Question to you, Alan, just in terms of, you've obviously got children. Did you change your mindset around your contribution and space in the world when your kids arrived?
It did change, but I have friends from my past who I don't see very often. And long story short, I lived in Weymouth for a summer many years ago, right before I met Emily. And I have friends from my time in Weymouth who still refer to me as like positive Alan, Alan with the PMA and things like that. And I never quite thought about it because I just am what I am. It's like when people say, wow, you're big, Alan. I'm like, well, I don't see it. All I've got is what I can see out my eyes. So I don't see and think about all these other things. I'm not a simple chap, but I kind of am a simple chap in his own way,
You're quite pragmatic.
Yeah, quite pragmatic. So I don't know. You do shift when you have kids. I was very more aware of what I was saying, but the story I have in my head, I remember being about 18 years old, and I was a field engineer driving around in a Vauxhall Astra fixing tills, right? Early computers. And I remember moaning a lot, right? And a girlfriend and a girlfriend's mum kind of said, you're always moaning,
There was
Alan.
a girlfriend before me.
Yeah, pre-Emily. And this is true. And this was before the internet, before I knew what affirmations were and everything else. And I wrote a post-it note with stop whinging and put it on my sun visor because I was doing 40,000 miles a year at the time. So every time I got in the car, I saw this reminder to stop whinging. And I feel that was probably the change for me. And 18, 19 years old, but I knew the moaning was negative and I wanted to do something about it. But this is probably 1988, something like that, 1997. So, it was...
1988 or 1997, they're two very different, that's a decade difference.
Oh, 98 or 97. Sorry. Something like that. 97, 98, something like that. So yeah,
I love your "it is what it is" mantra, because you can't fix what's already happened, but what you can do is make the next step go forward. I don't want to get too much into football, but the first match we played in the England qualifications, we won 1-0, but it was a fairly lackluster win, and the whole country was doom mongering the England team. And I said to a lot of people, would you take them 1-0 in the final? And we won the trophy. Well, absolutely. Well, we won. It's just about going through the gate. And never mind the fact that we did or didn't do what perhaps the potential pundits said we could have done. We won the match. Let's move on and champion the talisman strikers, football coaches, whatever else is in there. They did the job. They won 1-0. If it was the final, we would have been putting them on a bus and soniting the lot of them.
I do find, I mean, I certainly don't want to spend time discussing football that much because it's not really a thing in our house. But the they've lost a game, get rid of the manager is unbelievable. You know, because outside of this, it's all very much about you don't fail, you always learn, and X, Y, Z. In football, you lose one game and they talk about sacking you, and I'm like, things take years to set in place, you know, to these stepping stones to success and everything else. And you're going to sack someone after. Now, granted, if the mindset's wrong and everything else is wrong, it may be a different conversation. But it does feel very overly and unnecessarily knee-jerk at times.
Sorry to stop you boys there.
We do need to stop.
We do need to at some point close this podcast episode today. We could talk to you for a second episode, Chris, later on.
You can be on the list of second episodes one day.
We
Chris.
do have one final question, and let's see if we can get this wrapped up in under 45 minutes, boys. Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? If you were to go back to your younger self, and that could be paintball, Chris, or younger self, what would you say to yourself?
Trust the process and make good choices.
Make good choices.
Always.
Chris, I'm not going to say any more than that. I think that's a perfect way of ending today's episode. To everyone listening to today, thank you very much for listening to another amazing episode of the Digital Circus Life, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you both.